Welcome to The Social Capitalist, an interactive interview series dedicated to delivering in-depth discussions on relationship science with the best and brightest thought leaders in business and academia. Social Capitalist events are sponsored programming of myGreenlight, an exclusive online learning platform for relationship development skills and strategy. For more information or to attend a call live, visit our webpage at www.mygreenlight.com. Enjoy the recording.
I'm Sarah Grace, and you are here today at The Social Capitalist. I'm with Jeffrey Hayzlett, the best-selling author, marketing expert, and international changemaker. And as though to prove the point, he is with us today from Mexico specifically, Jeffrey?
I'm in Mexico City, downtown Mexico City right now. About to get ready to head over to speak to about 9,000 people at a major interactive advertising digital event.
Yeah, that's a reminder that it's a great moment to have this intimate gathering on the call. Jeffrey, thank you so much for being here. If you recognize Jeff's face, it may be because you've seen him on MSNBC, Fox Business, or Celebrity Apprentice. Jeff is the author of two fantastic smart books that I read recently, The Mirror Test and Running the Gauntlet, Essential Business Lessons to Lead, Drive Change, and Grow Profits. That was out in, I think, March of this year. Is that right?
Running the Gauntlet came out January the 3rd, and it's been doing great. Number 24 on the bestseller list on Amazon right now.
Yeah, well, it's a very special book. Both of his books are about creating change in an organization. What makes them really unique, though, is that Jeff has what I would call actually a historic perspective as the CMO of Kodak from 2006 to 2010. In other words, you were charged with change at an organization in what I can only imagine was a moment of paralytic fear. As the company was really broadsided by the digital revolution.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't have been. They created a lot of it themselves. They just didn't want to jump into it.
Yeah, I'll ask you some questions about that. Just to wrap up your bio, Jeff has created since then a formidable reputation as a change agent, now at the helm of his own business consulting firm, the Hayzlett Group. All right, so you're going to get some great wisdom on the call. I'm going to dive right into our questions. Jeff, I want to ask you first about your brand. You have done an amazing job creating a big, bold brand for yourself, and having met you and followed you online, I know that it's an incredibly authentic brand, but because it's so clear, I know that it's something that you've also created very consciously. So tell us how you do that, how you get yourself out there, and how it's served your business.
Well, it's an interesting thing to think that we put a lot of thought into it. Yes and no. We put thought into it in terms of making sure we do the things that we do. In terms of, this is what our brand wants to be, no. The reason I say that is when I look at a brand, I think of it from a marketing perspective. Brand's really two things. First of all, brand is something you always put on a cow, and occasionally you put it on a horse. That's what we do out in my part of the world in South Dakota. So, in fact, that's where the word brand came from or comes from. It's an iconic representation of ownership or visual display of ownership on the side of a bovine. I mean, that's basically where the word came from. But when you look at it in its true form, it's really about a promise delivered. And that's what it's about. And so I just try to be me. It's hard enough being me. It's hard enough to be anything else but me. But in terms of, I don't want to be anybody else is my point. And so what we did was we just said, look, let's just step into it. And let's just step in and be the person I am. So it's part business person, part cowboy, part celebrity. And now we built up some aspects of it. I mean, we physically or mentally went after saying, okay, how can we make a transition from the C-suite of a Fortune 100 company into something that has a viable future or franchise that's step and repeatable, that's a multi-million-dollar operation? Yeah, we did that. But we utilized the personality and my personality, and as you can see, it's bigger than necessary. So we do those aspects of it, but no, in terms of being true to who we are, we really are trying to do that, and then we reflect it in the visual displays that you see, and in terms of when I'm on camera, I try to look at a certain way. If I'm off camera, we try to show pictures of a certain way, and we try to show a mix between my red carpet work and say, on my ranch or my place back in South Dakota. So we do try to do some of that very visually.
Yeah, and you actually split your time between South Dakota and New York. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
I mean, so that's a pretty big commitment to kind of keeping one cowboy boot, back home, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it keeps you very grounded. South Dakota is a very spiritual place for me, and the people there are very special. I mean, to them, I'm Jeff Hayzlett, neighbor, whatever. And I go to my church there, and I'm in my community when I'm there, and you're Lindsay's dad or Tyler's dad or Tammy's husband, and I like that, and I can just go to the local Brandon area steakhouse and eat with my wife and have a walleye dinner or whatever, and we enjoy it, and it's just regular life, and then I get recharged. I'm always recharged because I live where I live and what I get to do, and then my New York side is my fast-paced business, more corporate side, and then because I don't get to see that much either. My office in New York, by the way, is like 50, 60 yards from my apartment. It actually takes me longer to come down from the 50th floor penthouse than it does to walk to my office from the front door. I mean, that's in terms of size. It's for us. I like the yin and yang to everything, and I like the push and pull. So it's always good.
So another question about marketing. I want to ask you about the 118 seconds, which is sort of one of your most kind of branded advice, and I think it's one of the best. It's a more nuanced version of the elevator pitch, but tell people why 118 seconds and what it is you see people, frankly, screwing up when it comes to very quickly demonstrating their brand premise.
Yeah, when you ask somebody, well, what do you do, or what's your company, you tend to get a lot of different answers, and most of the time they start telling you the things that they think you want to hear, but it's basically the things they want to hear about who they work with and so forth and how they do it. And when I was a chief marketing officer of a Fortune 100 company, and much like Keith, in the work that Keith was doing back in his work at Starwood and everywhere else he was at, CMOs, we tend to move from place to place to place. We have a short attention span, so we tend to move on. I'll probably forget the question before I get done. But when I had that role, I had thousands of vendors who would come and sell to me, and I would buy. We had a budget of $17 billion in total revenue, so we spent a lot of money as well. And so they would come and pitch me, but at the end of an hour, I still don't know who they did, 40-page PowerPoint presentation. I still didn't understand half the stuff that they were talking about because it was their stuff, not my stuff. And so I said, look, we've got to change it. We need a new elevator pitch because basically we make the decision to do business with each other in seconds, in literally 118 seconds. 8 seconds is the average attention span of an adult. I know that to be true. I looked that up on the internet, okay? And 110 seconds is the elevator ride in New York City. From the time you step on, the time you press the button, wait for the doors to open, step on, ride up or ride down, and get off, that's how much time you have. So you have 8 seconds to get the hook, or what I call that lean-in factor. You know, when you're talking to somebody, they lean in on the chair. So you have that 8-second rule. And then you have 110 seconds to close me. And in 110 seconds, spend the time giving me the value of what you want to offer. Don't tell me you work with Coke and Pepsi and this company. I don't care. I want you to tell me exactly, why it is I should be working with you as opposed to somebody else. And so I really want you to focus in on that message and the way in which you do it. I've got my 118 down to about 8 seconds total, and I watch other companies that the more you work on it, the better you get at it, and you'll change it depending on the audience. And the key thing is, does everybody else in your organization know the same pitch, know the same 8 seconds, know the same close? And that's important for you to be able to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I remember that in the book, and I remember thinking part of why it's so important is that everyone in your organization really needs to be prepared to sell your organization anytime. Especially
always be selling, always be closing, as they've said in the movies, and I really believe that's to be true. I'm always pitching my company. I'm always looking for opportunities to be able to put it out. And if you don't do it, who's going to do it? I mean, you're going to wait for somebody else to do it? They're not going to do it for you. So you need to take the responsibility to get that done.
So I want to ask you to tell a story from the book, and it's a story about Kodak, and I feel like it's sort of like asking Prince to sing Raspberry Beret. So I won't have too many Kodak questions, and I definitely recommend everyone go out and get the book.
I think it's critical. I mean, here's a company that was doing $17 billion in film 8 years ago. Today they'll do less than $100 million in film. Yeah, and they're bankrupt. Well, why? What happened to this company? What fundamentally went wrong? And what caused those things? And why couldn't they change? I think those are good questions to ask.
Yeah, the stories in the book are just incredible. One of my favorite ones was about the Elmer Fudd of printers. Can you tell that story? Can you tell everyone what the stakes were, how you handled it, and also what it meant for your team going forward?
Well, you talking about the large format, the large printer, or the desktop printer?
The one that did not look like a Ferrari, that needed to be a Ferrari.
One, yeah. Well, that's a great one because, look, we were selling a $4 million printer at the time. It was the world's fastest printer, fastest inkjet printer, commercial inkjet printer. In fact, it was an offset class. We called it offset class because it didn't quite do offset, but it was in the class of that. So I said to people, let's name it offset class. Like many years ago, that same technology, I called it business color. But because it was inkjet, it wasn't really great, what you would consider high quality printing, so I called it business color. And someone said, well, why would you call it business color? I said, because it's tougher to sell the word shitty color, all right? So I wanted to package it up and do something differently. So when the team brought me this massive printer the size of a semi-trailer tractor trailer truck, and that's what it looked like, they said, well, look, we're going to announce this. So I said, look, you just told me it's a $4 million printer. This is the world's fastest, the highest quality, does 4,000 copies per minute. No one else does this. Basically, trees go in one side, sheets of paper shoot out the other side. And you brought me something that looks like that's been designed by Soviet shop fitters. All due respect to Soviet shop fitters, but we know they're not great at design. So I said to them, I'm not announcing this. And they said, well, yeah, we are. And I said, no. When I stand up in front of 8,000 people and I pull the covers off of it, people should look at it and go, oh, my gosh, look at that. They should run up to it, want to have their picture taken to it. It should look like a Maserati, a Ferrari. It should look like fires coming out of its ass as it's sitting there on the showroom floor. And I said, you brought me something that obviously is, just butt ugly. It's the Elmer Fudd of printers. You can't be cool and dress like Elmer Fudd. So unless you redesign it and come back, don't expect to launch it. And so they came back a couple weeks later. They rounded the corners, made the top white, put some plexiglass windows in it, and actually put a yellow racing stripe down the side. So it looked like something Czechoslovakians had maybe designed, but not quite the same. But my point was, sometimes we need to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what's got to be right, and we're going to. And look, I'm willing to risk it. I'm willing to change it. If you don't make this happen in this manner at this level of quality, I'm not going to allow you to do it. And that's indeed what we did. So it's about standing for principles and having certain things that say that you're going to be able to do things.
Yeah, so one of the techniques you actually mentioned in the book is the need or the value actually of creating tension, which I mentioned because I imagine in that room when you demanded that they take their printer and shove it, there was a great deal of tension. How do you kind of ride that wave? How do you create the right amount of tension so that people are creative, but not so much that they're that they are basically afraid?
Well, you're going to make mistakes. You are going to have that from time to time, and depending on where the people are at their career. We had some difficulties getting on this call. I'm sure I caused tension this morning with my team, but I'll guarantee it won't happen again. So, those are the kind of things that you want to be able to put. So you want to make clear about your conditions of satisfaction. These are the things in which you're going to do. It's your job as a leader to cause tension. I mean, they have a saying in sports. I mean, everybody. If I can ask everyone that's on this attendees right now to fill in the following line or the word, no pain, no gain. Right. Exactly. So why don't we have that in business? I don't get that. So I think you do need tension, and tension causes healthy debate. That's a term I learned at Kodak, and I loved it from my CEO that was there, was healthy debate. I love healthy debate. I've been doing that all my life. I love to sit at dinner, throw out a topic, and have everybody fight over the topic because you come out with a better knowledge, a better understanding, a better way of thinking about the things than you did before you started that conversation. So healthy tension is great, and that's the key word, healthy tension. Tension's not good if you don't have it. It's not healthy. So the key thing is to find the balance between that from time to time. And look, if you push people and you push it too far and you do scare them, I mean, no one's going to die. I mean, so move on. And, this is business. This isn't life and death for the most part. We're not operating on people, thank goodness. In my case, I'm marketing. I'm doing marketing. I'm growing businesses at high rates of speed and high levels of profitability with high customer satisfaction levels. That's not, no one's going to die because I'm doing those kind of things. So for you to cause tension, I just think that's exactly what a leader should be doing, and what everyone on this call should be doing as you move forward.
Yeah, I've always loved to say there are agencies in relationship management. So you glossed over a term there that I think is another.
I'm doing different thing. I'm putting a halo on top of my head. Things like that.
No,
anyway, I'm sorry. I get distracted very quickly.
You mentioned conditions of satisfaction, and I'd like you to unpack that a little because I think it's a really useful concept.
It's one I live by every single day, and I don't do anything without it because that's the most important thing, and quite frankly, in life. It's what you do with your family every single day. It's what you do with every vendor. It's what you do with every employee. It's what you do with every single customer. Is you want to set mutual conditions of satisfaction. That's a key word for that. Mutual conditions of satisfaction. So what I'm talking about that is between everything in life, there's a customer and there's a performer. And there's an action cycle that occurs in that scope of that relationship. So where you've got one side, a customer is asking for something or wanting something that they're, for a price of service or whatever, and then you got someone who's willing to give it to them or provide it for them or needs to do it because to keep their job or the revenue or whatever it might be, or just to be a nice person. But in that, there's an implied agreement. So there's 4 phases of that, and I won't go into it because you can get that deeper in the book. But really, with everything that we do, there's a promise that we're going to, have between each other. Just like, team here, you're having me on the show. Well, you're doing it for your fans and for your followers and people that do it, and you want me to be entertaining and knowledgeable and credible. Otherwise, you don't deliver your promise back to your attendees that are here on the call today. So in everything that we do, and so I constantly tell my team, it's like, well, who's the customer? And so, meaning when we're having discussions about, we got to do this. Well, who's the customer? Okay. Who's the performer? What's the condition of satisfaction? And if we know what that is, we know exactly what we have to perform on, and we're very clear in that process of what needs to get done. And so I think when you speak in those terms, and I do this all the time, is what's our condition of satisfaction that we're trying to get accomplished? Well, that tells me exactly what I need to do, and I don't need to do all this other stuff that everybody's talking about or spinning off on. I need to focus in on this, and this is what I need to do.
Great. So thinking about the customer, one thing that I think that consultants and actually internal change agents deal with all the time is the challenge of giving a recommendation, especially when you're in a sales position as opposed to already in the organization, giving a recommendation that is going to mean a lot of change for people. How do you socialize that? How do you get people on board with recommendations that are really going to change their jobs and their organization deeply?
Well, I have a theory on social media. I call it the 4 E's, and it applies very much to this side of the piece as well, because whether you're doing it online or offline, I tell people in marketing around your product and your promises, if your product sucks offline, it's going to suck online. So let me give you the 4 E's that I talk about. And, so first of all, I want to engage. So you want to get engaged with the team members that you're going to you want to change. And then as you get engaged, you want to educate. So I want to tell you where we want to go, how we want to do it, and the way in which we want to do it. And I want you to get bought into it so it becomes the 30, the excitement of that. And then with the excitement, then becomes the evangelism, the 4th E. So engage, educate, excite, and evangelize is really a great way of being able to think through the process, and that's what you want to do here. I've always found to be very, very radically transparent is probably one of the best policies that most leaders can take, because then people don't know where they stand with me or with other leaders. I mean, I can tell you that my team knows exactly where they stand on any issue, anyway. They don't have to second guess where I'm going to come from. I don't want them to second guess. I want them to know very clearly conditions of satisfaction, where we're going to go, how we're going to do it, and what we expect of them. And by doing that I think fosters that you can say it becomes the culture of the company, because it takes a long time to develop a culture over a period of time. But it certainly impacts the mood. And I talk about in my book, Running the Gauntlet, that the mood is probably one of the most important things that you need to have in the business, because if you have a great mood, and even if you have crappy products, you can have a good company. If you have a great company and good products or great products and have a bad mood, well, then you can't succeed. I mean, Kodak's a prime example. They had some great products, but yet they had a bad mood. They believed their best days were behind them, not in front of them. And when you have that kind of mood, I don't care who you are, what you do, you can't succeed.
Yeah, so in the book, one of the things that I noticed was that throughout it, there's a lot of kind of war talk terminology, running the gauntlet.
Yeah.
You mentioned patent. Is that one of your favorite engagement techniques, this kind of enemy at the gates?
Well, I always think it's good to have an enemy. I think I say that, I do say that in the book. I think having an enemy is a good thing. It makes you sharper. So if you don't have an enemy, you don't know who you're fighting against or what you're up against, so there's no stakes in it. So I think it's important to know where people are coming from, where competition is coming from. I grew up on a military base most of my life, so that, I'm very attuned with certain societies and groups that are along those lines. So for me, that's what I am, and that's what I'm hired. I'm pretty much have always been a hired gun. I've always been the weapon that you bring in, the pit bull you keep on the leash. And I understand that's my role, and that's what I do. So I tend to talk in those terms. When you bring in a person like me to drive the high growth, to drive the change, then, I usually don't have a very long time to do it, and you're bringing me in for a reason, and so we have to move very, very quickly. So you'll see a lot of that. But yeah, I think people, I use some analogies about how we did the inkjet wars that we were doing, and how we moved from a position of, like number 20 to number 13 to number 3 in the market, in some cases in the UK and other places to number 1 in just a very short period of time. I mean, unheard of in terms of how we did some of the product moves that we did. And yet, I did that by creating teams of what I called. I was the general. I had a lieutenant. I had sergeant majors, and we had a war room. And we focused and I showed them tactics. I showed them flanking tactics, maneuvering tactics. Surprise attacks. I showed them how to do different kinds of things from a textbook, from an actual military textbook, and said, look, let's look at this as a strategy, and this is how we're going to do it. And by the way, when we do this, what's going to be the enemy's response? How are they going to react? Because I want you to look at them and understand that they're going to do things really hardcore. And you might be, the most moral and wonderful person who is the nicest, because I had a lot of those folks at Kodak. They were like, kind of really wonderful people. I'm not putting that down. I'm saying really wonderful people. In fact, when I'm on national media and they ask about the bankruptcy or whatever, they say, what do you want to say? And I said, I feel bad for the people, because the people are the greatest people I've ever met in my life in Rochester and certainly at Kodak. And because they were so nice, I knew that other people would take advantage of them, and other harder companies would more rigid, or what I say, mean-spirited culture. So it was important to tough them up. So yeah, I did a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, well, you can tell that it was effective, because when you read the book, it gets very exciting. You know what I mean? You can feel what that creates. Just as
and you can tell, I'm very visual. I'm a visual person. I love to tell stories, and I use the metaphors, the analogies in my way of doing it. So that's my style, and so I try to deliver those stories and examples in that manner. I've always done that in my life. I've listened to some of the greatest storytellers in the world, and they've had a profound impact on me, and I love telling stories.
Yeah, it's an incredible leadership tool. So now I want to talk a little bit.
I love winning more. I love winning more than anything. So.
I want to talk about the malcontents. We called this session "How to Be Bold, Controversial, and Unhated," mostly because anytime you do take a stand, particularly a controversial one, you're going to piss some people off. So my question is, when it comes to the people who just won't fall into line, do you try to convert those people, or at some point do you just walk past and let them be? Do you need everyone on the team?
I walk past when I get rid of them. I mean, you walk past or get rid of them. In the book I talk about, in the book Running the Gauntlet, the second book, I talk about the rule of thirds. A third of them get it right away, a third of them eventually get it, and a third never will. So don't waste your time on the thirds never will. Either move past them, okay, just move right by them, because they won't count, or get rid of them. And it depends on the role that they have and the way in which they'll impact you, which role that you want to take. I mean, and you can still love them, but you're just going to miss them. I mean, I hate to be hardcore about it, but I'm just being honest.
Yeah. So we're going to go to Q&A in 5 minutes. I just want to remind the audience of that. If you want to queue up questions, now is a great time to start thinking about all your questions about marketing, brand, business that you have for Jeff.
Anything. About horses. You can ask about my horses.
And about his horses. So social media, let's talk about that for a minute, because you may be, other than Kodak, you may be most widely known for being one of the most effective C-suite tweeters, both in terms of how you've used it as a CMO at companies and for your own business. So what's your best tip for executives who want to get active in social or stay active in social?
Well, just know your family, know your audience, or friends, or whatever you want to call them. I mean, know your community, and then engage with them in that manner. And I do that. I'm always surprised that people find that I do my own tweeting or I do my own social media. I do it. Now, do I have some people help feed stuff up, help me get it formatted, because I say, here's what I want this week, here's how I want to do it. Yeah, I got to do some of it, but by and large, 99% of everything you see that's written or done is by me, and it doesn't take that much time. But I want to engage, and I have this family out there of people, my family, my real family, who's following me, want to know what's Dad doing, where's he at, or what city he's at, or and then I have a fans that are saying, well, what did he say next? Then I have other fans and marketers that want some insight on what I might say or not say, and they don't always agree with it, and that's fine with me. But I have that interaction, and I'm still always surprised because people email me, and I respond to every email. I typically respond to every tweet, maybe not always the same day or within 5 minutes. I had somebody complained in the conference the other day. They said, well, geez, I just sent you a tweet and you didn't respond. Hell, I was on stage. I mean, I couldn't do it. So I told the guy to shut up, relax, sit down, relax. But, I'm always surprised that people don't do that, and they're not real, they're not engaged in that manner. I mean, it's just been very effective. I mean, I will tell you, the number one business income leads that I get is from Twitter. Number one.
Wow.
So, we know it works, and I didn't think Facebook was for me, and now I'm wrong. I got 500 new fans since just Friday alone, which is fabulous. We average about 100 a day now, which is great. And we started with 0 fans on Facebook on January 1st. We switched over from a personal page to a fan page, and now we've got 18,438.
Wow, and that's new clients at a business consulting firm, because that really shows you the value of engagement over time. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, well we have 60,000 on Twitter and a like on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's been very good for us as well. LinkedIn's more of a just a place to hang out, but and have people as a repository for getting us stuff or us getting to them. But we really like it.
All right, so we've got some great questions queued up. I want to ask one quick fun one before I turn over to them, because I did promise in the promotion I'd ask it. Don't want to forget. Talk to us about the Donald. What's it like to work in TV with a guy of that kind of stature? Do you have a great story? Have you learned anything? It's not from Donald's, from TV.
Yeah, he's a real guy. He is who he is. I mean, we've become friends. I did 3 seasons or 3 shows on 3 seasons. Not more than 3 shows, than 9 shows total. But with Donald, it was nice. It was great. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. Went on to work with him on Miss Universe, Miss USA, and some other things. And from time to time we see each other. I know his kids well. In fact, I've become very good friends with him as well. And I'm trying to get Donald Jr. to come pheasant hunting with me in South Dakota. But and Ivanka and Donald both have endorsed both of my books. The key thing you find about Donald Trump is what you see is what you get. Very calculated, very, very smart, very bold. He has a strong sense of himself, which, we have a lot of things in common from that perspective. The funnest thing I could tell you was the first time I showed up on the set, I was wearing a pink tie, he was wearing a pink tie, and the producers came over and, at that time I was the customer. And they said, well, geez, Mr. Hayzlett, we need you to change your tie. I said, well, I'm not changing my tie. I don't have a tie. 2, I'm not changing it. And they said, well, it's his show. So I said, well, find me another tie. I'll be glad to change it, but I don't have another tie. So we looked over at Donald Trump's bodyguard and driver, former New York cop, and just a great guy, huge guy, bigger than me. I'm 6'3", 280 pounds, and he's bigger than me. And so we looked over, and the tie, so I had to walk over and say, hey, can I have your tie? And I need it for the show. We explained. So he took off his tie, gave me his tie. I put it on. I wore it in the show. And then, of course, after the scene, he came over to get it. And I said, no, I got to wear it the rest of the day for continuity. And so I ended up sending him a free camera and so forth. But I wore his tie through the rest of the show, and that because we had to have that continuity so you look the same, throughout the day. And
right.
I remember I had Donald sign it, and we actually auctioned it off at a local radio station in Rochester. Got, I think, about $1,800 for the tie for scholarships for kids. But that's just behind-the-scenes story.
That's great. All right, I got to get to the questions because we've got some great ones. So from Jeff Nieswitz, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, Jeff. He asks, it was recently suggested to me that if you're looking to achieve big change with your business and with your client base, you need to have a high rejection rate. At least 50% is what Jeff has heard. Because big ideas or change will mean high rejection rates in order to get to the people who really get it. What do you think about that? Is a 50% rejection rate a sign that you're going in the right direction?
Well, I think it might. I don't. Well, there's no thing in lobbying that if I want to win by a few votes, I want to lose by a few votes because then I've given too much away. But that's the consensus side. If I'm changing, I want to try to. I assume you're talking about just the change from inside on the rejection rate. I don't know if you're talking about customers, so I'm going to look at it from a couple different perspectives. I tend to want to get as many people on board as possible by driving the change. I think I want to look at first, what is it I want to be and how is it that I want to deliver it? And by, if you're owning your own business or if you're doing your own thing, I don't want to be somebody different than I am for me. And that doesn't set well with everybody, but I also want to be as popular as possible because I got books to sell and so forth and so on. So I want to try to do things to a certain extent that cause the dissidence, but only to cause the dissidence and I'm talking about the theory of cognitive dissonance, where it moves people off the fence. So you're going to say things positively and negatively to move them one way or the other. And that's what politicians do every single day, is to say things in a way that move us one way or the other on the issue. So, my gut tells me is that's not what you want, because then you're fighting people right off the bat. But I would rather come at it from a perspective of what is it that I want to have in the end, what is it that I want to drive, and then what are the things I got to do to drive it to get there. And then look at it from that perspective, and then try to find those people around me and find devout followers and that want to be a part of that. That's what I would do.
Great, and great question, Jeff. From
It
Kristen
is a good question.
Say again?
I say it's a good question, and I would always, guys, look, this is my stuff. This is my assessment, and it's only my. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why everybody's calling me, but I'm going to call it. And we're going to hang up on it. So, because you guys are more important than whoever's trying to call me right now, which is probably housekeeping. Because they're trying to get in the door. Yeah, but
right.
I got distracted. Well, it is really, it's only my assessment. My assessment's only mine. Doesn't mean they're right or they're wrong, it's just my assessment. So, and you're going to get that from other people who are going to bring you information and give you advice. Just remember, they're only assessments. Doesn't mean they're right or they're wrong. You've got to make those decisions that are right for you.
Yeah, as Keith Ferrazzi would say, it's only data. So
Yeah,
from Kristen Ginty, we have a question for people in sales who aren't selling a product, but who are selling essentially consulting, their own knowledge, their time, or someone else's time, consultancy services. What's the best way to differentiate when everyone's saying a variant of the same thing? How do you stand out and impress and, like we talked about before, really make a brand for yourself that matters?
Don't be the same thing. I mean, why would you want to be the same thing? You're the same thing, you're just a commodity. I don't want to be the same thing. What we do is different than anybody else, and we do it in a different way because it's us and it's our style. And so I think you've got to find your own. You've got to find your own thing. Don't lump yourself in together with those people or with those services.
All right. From let's see, we've got a question about friend sourcing in the book from Jennifer Fleming. Talk to us about friend sourcing. Actually, that's a great question. I was interested in that too.
Well, friend sourcing is something that we practice all the time. I mean, it's been used forever. I mean, if you look at how people buy products, the way in which they buy products, one of the things they do is they ask their friends, right? So when I got my new iPad years ago, I didn't know which apps to get because I hadn't looked, and so what I did was just I used my friends. So I sent a tweet out to my 15,000, 20,000 followers at the time and said, well, what are your favorite apps in these following categories? And then everybody sent me their suggestions. And so I took the top 3 from all of those people, looked at them, and then I had my apps, the best apps. What I did was friend source my friends who think like me or are like me or we have some similar association or they wouldn't be my friends. And so that's how you do things. And so it's better than crowdsourcing. That wasn't crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing would have been taking an ad out on the interstate and then getting people to give me advice or input from the crowd of people that I don't know. Well, who do I trust most? My friends. And so getting to those friends is the most important thing that you could possibly do. These guys are very persistent. I apologize for the call. So these folks, you know, I'm sorry to hang up on these people. I apologize. This is fun. So the friend sourcing. I mean, think about a woman today. She goes and she buys a dress. So she might go and buy a dress, and yet when she walks into the store.
Hey, Jeff, we've lost your audio. Can you hear me?
Oh,
no. Oh. I think you're back.
Oh, is that
Sorry.
done?
Yeah, you're back now. Keep talking.
Okay. Well,
you were talking about a woman who, when she buys a dress.
Oh, yeah. So she buys the dress. One of the things that she'll go off and do is she used to go, you know, and try it on, walk out, say, hey, how do I look in it? Well, now she takes a picture of herself, sends it to her friends, posts it up, and then asks her friends. That's friend sourcing. It's a very powerful tool.
All right. From Cindy R. Curry. This is a good question, and I also think relates to things that we've been discussing. When selling services that require top leadership to admit, essentially, that they need the change you're selling, in other words, they're not perfect, they're not doing it all right now, what approach do you take so that you don't have to alienate them by pointing out, you know, the problems, but actually pull them on board?
Well, I think you do want to tell them what the problems are and what the pain is, because if you're not telling them what the pain is, then you know, the issues are you're not going to be able to move them where you want to go. So, you know, eventually you're going to have to deal with that one way or the other, aren't you? I mean, you're going to have to address it. Do you want to address it now, or do you want to hide it, not talk about the elephant in the room and then get to it later? I mean, what is it you want to do?
But is there some kind of spoonful of sugar? I mean, how do you
I mean, I maybe, but I mean, look, if I'm overweight, I'm overweight. You know, if I'm I mean, there's certain ways they could say, well, look, I noticed you're big boned, but you know, let me talk to you about your health. And I mean, so I guess there's different ways you can sugarcoat it, and you have to find what those are. But what you're trying to do is solve those problems, so why not address those problems? I think it makes you more valuable. It certainly makes you more genuine.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I'd like to talk to you about your health.
Well,
all right.
If you're talking about mine, get in line because there's a long list. There's a long line.
From Sharon Prather, she wants to hear your 118-second pitch.
Sharon, it's easy. We only work with high-growth companies. Are you a high-growth company? I mean, that's literally all we do. And that's all we have to say with most of the companies that want to know us or get to know us, and that's literally all we use.
And do you have the problem that the company doesn't perceive itself correctly? I mean, do the companies self-select?
In that case, we would maybe go at them a little bit differently, but typically I'd say, look, we've identified you as a high-growth company. We only work with high-growth companies, and we'd like to have a discussion about how we can accelerate that growth so that we can find you an exit strategy that's going to be suitable for your retirement needs into the future. So, I mean, that would be one way that we could do that. So, in that case, I'd turn it around and point out and, compliment them on what they have that they don't know that they have. We did that yesterday with a company called Cream.hr. This is a company that we saw at a VC pitch that I was keynoting at. I saw this company and I said, this company's got potential. They just need some help, and we're going to step in and work with them. And because it's going to be big, it's going to be a very, very big company. No doubt in my mind. And so we do that from time to time. We see what they've got, and if they, where they might, and I'll use them as a prime example, and I'm sure that they won't mind because they love the transparency. But here they're selling a system that they said will change the way that people hire people. Well, nobody wants to change the way that people hire them. What they want is better efficiencies, different ways of doing and getting greater predictabilities to hire the top performers. So I said, well, let's change the messaging around a little bit so that you're not seen as a way of changing everything, because nobody wants to do that, but a way to add and better the things you already do to make it more efficient, to give you greater predictability in the top performers you want to hire. So that's so it's a great way of changing it and doing it a little bit differently.
Great. So from Jorge Colon, a question that anyone who's worked with a big organization, I think, will identify with. How do you communicate urgency to leaders that are very happy and comfortable with inertia? Is it data? Is it an emotional appeal, stories? What's most effective? Or do you use everything?
No, you'll use everything. I mean, you'll use everything. But that's more tactics in terms of delivery. I think what you want to do is understand those things that are most important to them and what's at risk. So, it's like when I used to change gas taxes on automobiles, the best thing to do was to tell people while they were driving why they needed to fix the bridge that they were on at the time in which they were on it, and why gas tax helped to fix that. So in this case, what I want to do is find out those things that are most precious to them, that mean the most to them, and what they're at risk of losing if they don't drive the change that they have to do. I mean, when you look at the hubris of success of Kodak for so many years of wanting to protect that, that little yellow box, that roll of film, because it had great margins, great. I mean, if you'd ask most people at Kodak, what business are you in, they would say, we're in the film business. They were never in the film business, ever. I mean, they had the only product that people would actually run back into a burning building and save. They were in the emotional technology business. And the film was just a mechanism for being able to deliver that. And had they looked at it and said, look, we're in the emotional technology business. We deliver happiness. We deliver moments. We deliver Kodak moments. That's what we deliver. And whether it's in your business or your personal life, and let me show you how you can do that now with a digital phone, a digital camera, a video camera, a digital way, not just a roll of film. Well, what a different company that would have been today. And yet they couldn't make that transition. See, they got so fixated on the hubris of the success of the product that it blinded them to everything else. And so when they invented the camera in December of 1975, they stuck it in a room for 35 years. So that gets to the basic premise of being able to point out those things that are most at risk and who are you at your core. And it's very critical. I mean, when you understand who you are, we started this conversation talking about my brand and understanding that. Well, I understand very clearly who I am, what I can do, and what I can't do. And there are many times when companies come to me and say, I can't do that. We don't do that. It's not me. And don't do that. So the same thing has to hold true here.
That works out really well as a wrap-up to the call. I guess, have one final question. I'd just love to hear about what you're working on now that you love, either personally or professionally. What's new and fun in Jeff Hayzlett's life?
I'm heading home to South Dakota tomorrow after I give some keynotes tonight. I love what I do. I get up every day loving what I do. Even when there's difficulties, I love what I do because I get to do it, and I'm setting it the way I want to do it, and that's a wonderful thing. And my wife will say that I would do this for free, and I say, shh, don't tell people. Making the money is how we keep score. So I just absolutely love helping grow businesses, love helping to tell people how to do it or show them the ways in which to do it, and then coming up with creative ways to get it done. And when you can do that, that's exciting. I have 3 rules for life for me, and they may or may not work for you, but they certainly work for me. One is to build wealth for my family. The second is for me to grow professionally, and the third is to have fun. And if I can have all 3 of those, it's great.
Jeff, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you here and such a pleasure to have you halftime in New York. Everyone, run out and buy both of Jeff's books. You can also look him up at Hayzlett.com. I think we put up his Twitter before, but it's at Jeff Hayzlett, right?
Yeah, it's Jeffrey Hayzlett. And just search and look for Hayzlett, Hayzlett. You cannot miss me. We are everywhere.
Jeff, thanks so much. Thank you all for being here. This call will be up on iTunes. Actually, we are now a podcast. You can find it by searching for Social Capitalist, myGreenlight, and a number of other terms. Hope to see you next month. Jeff, again, thank you for joining us all the way from Mexico. I really enjoyed this chat.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Everyone, have a great week.